I didn't really know what I was doing. I think what I responded to most and close to home was the way Paul Maunder approached, because he would actually improvise. And we were in this soap strip format, and Paul would ask us to consider what the scene was actually about and just make it up. And I really loved that. I think it was the most rewarding of any of that work for me. I had a life that was probably not a life that a lot of people had at that age. I had already I'd lived on the street already. I was investigating life, and so I suppose for me that's what I tried to bring to that character, a sense of showmanship and experience. Eating life. I wanted to bring that to the character, and also a certain larrikin edge that I suppose I identified with, you know, a bit of a knockabout lad, but not in a violent sense, not, you know, not in that sense, but in terms of breaking down what we perceive and what we think is the way things should be. The joy for me about working with Ian Mune at the time was that his excitement and enthusiasm for the project itself was it just rubbed off, and I felt an opportunity to really. Again, I was not the original. I was runner-up in the casting of that as well. So when I got the call that I got the role, I really wanted to. I wanted to show that I could do it and fulfill it, and that he made a right choice. In some ways, that I was up for it. I love that period. There was something bountiful in that period in our world, where, you know, post the war, maybe it was, you know, narrow-minded, but there was you know, the sense of expansion and fun and all those influences that we had here in this country. The you know, the Yanks have been here and had rubbed off, and, you know, Cyril had a Zippo lighter, you know, and he fancied himself as a kind of, you know, crooner, you know, parody of that whole American thing, you know, and his ability to dance was all, you know, it was the jitterbug, and he had somehow fashioned himself as this ideal of what the hip conman chap was. And of course, you know, I had Peter Bland, who was he's so inventive and constantly thinking and constantly approaching each scene with, what can I do, you know, just watch him. And I had to really stretch to meet that, you know. I could no longer sit back on that television comfortability. I had to really become big. I had to fill this big screen, which I wasn't sure if I was able to do. It was my first real challenge at filling big screen, huge, you know. When I saw my performance, I went, oh, faux pas. I looked at it, I went, I've just delivered something that was more of a cinematic performance in a soap, and it doesn't work. I mean, that was my take on it, you know. I got reasonable feedback from people, you know, but that was my take on it. It was interesting. It was a foray back into something that I hadn't done for a while. Although in Australia I had spent 6 months on a strip drama that was pumping like that. And again, when I think about that experience, I don't know if I'm really suited for that medium. soap, of strip drama, you know. I enjoyed it. It was challenging for me. As I say, I work very much inside out, and I have to really connect internally with a character. And sometimes the process of that is out, you know, understanding action and what the character's doing. But I think I was just brought something too big, and you know, he was this Russian and it was emotional, and so I just pushed it out. It was like Chekhov on film for television. That was my experience. I don't know what I was doing, probably. Yeah. My performance on Street Legal, it was the first time I actually watched something and was happy with what I did. And I think it is because of my familiarity. Also, familiar faces, again, directing, people I'd had relationships with, Chris Bailey, who I'd worked with on Terry and the Gunrunners. I felt settled in it. So I was able to just focus on what I was doing. I didn't take responsibility for anyone else. And I can tend to do that because I really get concerned about the story and where the story's going and how it's working as a whole. It's not my business. As an actor, your business is your part of the story. And I felt that I was able to do that concisely. Just take care of my own business. It was a teen role, but I wasn't a teen. It was interesting. The character was I suppose, a sort of, you know, middle-class, privileged lad who had everything and you thought he was kingpin. And that was his undoing. Posthumously, my experience of Bridge to Nowhere was always bumping up with Muni in some place in the world and him going, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." It was a hard film in a way, I know. Like, it was a hard film to make. For me, it was really hard to find the substance of the story, to be honest. You know, I found it very difficult to find the substance of the story, and therefore where my character, where he sat in that story that gave it, that resonated through. And because I do work inside out, I keep saying that, I've got to feel, my belly has to be connected to it in some way. If I don't feel that, I'm lost as an actor, actually. And there were times in that film where I was really lost, and I know that it frustrated Ian at times, and he had to help me contextualise that and find it so I could just give him what he needed, what he wanted.